Very, very pleased to be able to speak to you, Michael, the Michael Owen. When I mentioned that I was going to be able to speak and spend time with you today, a lot of people I know were excited. And it's just amazing how so much of the world is in love with you, and find a little bit of themselves in you. And then meeting you made me realize why that is the case, given your achievements in soccer and football. Over the years and the legend that you've created for yourself, the thing that strikes me most about you is the fact that you've kept honest to yourself a lot. Tell me a little bit about that journey, to stardom and then to ordinary life.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your kind words. I think I was always brought up in what I would consider the right way. Football was always something that I was in love with, and I was desperate to become a professional footballer. Never for one moment did I ever waver from that. I always knew I was going to be a footballer. That sounds very arrogant or big-headed, but it was just the truth that I, as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, I was always, the best player in my team by a considerable margin. And quite early on, I think people knew that I was going to be a footballer, including myself and my father, who was a professional himself. Right. I think to answer your question, it's I had a very, I think when you become famous from nothing, which I did, I got into the Liverpool team and I got fame straight away. But then, virtually straight away, as an 18-year-old, went to the World Cup, and all of a sudden, having been known by people in the UK and maybe a few people around the world, all of a sudden the whole of the world, the footballing world, knew who I was from that World Cup. Dealing with that felt normal for me. Lots of people were, staggered by me just thinking it was just, a normal occurrence. But that's just how I was mentally tuned. I knew I was going to be a footballer. I'd always prepared to be a footballer. I'd been brought up in a certain way that was always respectful to people. I also quickly understood that I was almost living two lives. I think it's very dangerous if you think that being a footballer is what it is and it's always going to be like that. So we have a famous tunnel in Liverpool that goes under the River Mersey. And I used to feel myself, as soon as I went under the tunnel, it's right, you're footballer mode, you're happy, you're signing autographs, people are going to sing to you. In the stadium, 45,000 people are going to sing your name. All this is very, very nice, and don't get me wrong, I loved it. But I also had a feeling in the back of my mind that, in 15 years, that will never happen. You've still got to be a good son, a good brother, a good father, a good friend to other people. And when I used to drive back away from training or away from matches, it was back to normal life, being respectful to everybody, just like everyone else is. I think the footballers that come unstuck are the people that get very carried away by their importance and, they let things go to their head. And then all of a sudden, when they're 35 and retired, they find it very difficult to conform back to normality.
Before that match with Argentina in the World Cup, was there a mindset that was different from the mindset after that match? Were you saying to yourself, I'm looking forward to the day that I'm going to be famous and I'm going to make something, I'm going to cross that line, that tunnel? Was there a difference?
Definitely a difference in getting to the top. It's all great fun. Once you're at the top and you're continuing to score it and play well and win awards and all the rest of it, it continues to be fun for a certain period of time. But if you ask anybody that reaches the top of their profession, mainly in sport, and I've spoke to a lot of people, after a short while, it becomes the driving force is fear that somebody else is going to be better than you. I won the Golden Boot in my first 2 years as a professional footballer at 17 and 18 in the Premier League. And all of a sudden I thought that trophy's mine. And now I was petrified that anybody was going to take it off me. So once I became 19, 20, the fun of scoring, the fun of crossing that line and frightening defenders and all that I'd always had for 15 years started slipping away slightly. And then it became, right, I still love the game, but the feeling of scoring wasn't joy anymore. It was more relief that I'm still still at the top.
Right.
Still nobody's as you know.
And then there's the public scrutiny, right? Everything you did had a comment to it. One of the questions I kept getting from people who, I asked several people like what questions they would ask you. The first thing is, why did you leave Liverpool, and Manchester, and then why did you stay only a short time at, in Real Madrid, that kind of thing, and was Newcastle a swan song, that kind of thing. They're writing the script for you. Did you feel like the story was being taken away from you, like like you were not your own anymore?
Yeah, you become public property in many ways. You got to accept that, but I think people fail to realise that you're still a normal person, and it's very easy to criticise somebody that certain times hasn't got a voice. People will come to a decision or a conclusion about you and read into it, oh, he left this club because he doesn't like this, or he went there because of this. It was purely, I had a fantastic, I never ever thought I was ever going to leave Liverpool. That was my team. I'd grown up there. I knew all the...
And why did you leave Liverpool?
Well, because at some point in life, I think, in my life, the two teams that were just a dream for everybody, where you can actually compete and do something different and that has some mystique about it, are Real Madrid and Barcelona. If you're in the Premier League or if you're anywhere in the world of football and Real Madrid and Barcelona come in for you, it's very, very difficult. In fact, it's virtually impossible to say no. And I never had any intention ever of leaving Liverpool.
Did they have to scout? Did they have to work on you for a bit to get there, or
not really? As soon as I found out, my agent phoned me and I was at Liverpool, and he said Real Madrid want to sign you. It sent my brain into chaos, really,
Okay.
because I wasn't willing to leave, but I also knew that if I say no, this will probably be the only time I can ever have an opportunity to live in a different country, speak a different language, try a different climate, try different food, play in that white kit in an unbelievable stadium with Zidane, Ronaldo, Figo, Raul, Beckham, all these great players, Roberto Carlos. It was just a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I think I saw comfort from the chairman at Liverpool, the chief executive, Rick Parry at the time, and said, I do want to go and give this a try, but I only want to give it a try if you promise me that you'll buy me back in a year or two when I've had the experience. And we almost left with a shake of the hand, and that was the thing that gave me comfort, really, to go and try.
But you didn't stay too long in Real Madrid.
No, I didn't stay too long. I had a great time. The people were great. The team was great. I had a fantastic time there, scored a lot of goals, made a lot of friends. But I think the Premier League at the time was overtaking the La Liga. I'm a home boy. I'd always been, at Liverpool, and I think a year was enough to have a great experience. But I always knew that I wanted to come back and play in the Premier League. And of course, I wanted to come back to play for Liverpool. Then there's a long story in terms of how and why I couldn't sign for Liverpool. Despite all our efforts, Liverpool had only sold me for 8 million the year before, and then we'd all agreed everything. Liverpool had put an 8 million bid back in to buy me, and I thought everything was sorted. And then by the time I flew back over to Madrid to sort everything out, Newcastle had put £16 million on the table. And the president of Real Madrid came to me and said, we want to keep you, but if you want to go back to England, then you can, but it has to be to Newcastle. And of course, I knew it was coming secretly, but I was, so disappointed because I wanted to go to Liverpool. Liverpool couldn't match the 16 million, and Madrid basically gave me an ultimatum to either go to Newcastle or to stay there.
Right. The reason we're having this conversation is, there's lots of wealth being created in society, and we want to take the football angle of how is good transferable to society, creating sustainability in society and stuff like that. And sports in general does that a lot. And you now are in a position, because of your wealth and your brand, to give back to society. After football, you still own horses, for example, and people question how does horse racing and stable ownership fit into the Michael Owen story, and how did that come about? Was it Alex Ferguson who made that?
Not quite. I think I realised at a young age that football doesn't last forever. I had, dreams of going into coaching and working on television, doing all these things when I retired, and I just needed to choose which one I wanted to do. But I also thought to myself, I've got to have interests and businesses for when I finished. The last thing I wanted to do was retire from football and think to myself, what shall I do next? So I was conscious about that, and by the time I hit my mid-20s, I decided that one of my passions was horse racing. It had been since an early age. And I bought a farm quite close to me and converted it from an old arable farm into a racehorse stables. We started with 20 horses, and I managed to get people like Sir Alex Ferguson owning horses.
Oh, okay, it was the other way around.
It was the other way around.
Okay.
And I basically tried to drive business for my own stables. So at that point, of course, the footballing world I was an easy target. People were saying, "Oh, he's not interested in football now. He's more interested in horse racing." But the truth is that if you don't prepare for the future, there's a lot of people that come unstuck when they retire. They don't know what to do next. They turn to things that they shouldn't really turn to. And I was simply preparing for life after football. And now I think all those people, certainly I'm smiling now, because as soon as I retired, I went seamlessly into other things, working on the television. Obviously, my business was up and running, and a very successful business at that. So it was something that I had planned, and I'm pleased that I did it, because, as I say, I know a lot of footballers now that wish they had planned for something, and now are finding it very difficult to cope with their career after football.
Right. What are the three most important things you're working on right now? And how do they relate back to giving back to football?
Football is certainly a sport that people do give back to. Of course, the rewards are great, but the rewards have to last you a lifetime. I retired at 33, so I've got a family. I want to provide for them. But I think it's very easy to give back, and it doesn't always have to be financial. I have a business at the moment where I mentor a lot of young footballers, for example. So, a group of Man United, Manchester City, Everton, Liverpool. I look after a player at Leeds and different clubs like that. So that is what I consider giving back. I do it for the love of the game, the love of seeing a young lad with loads of talent and ability, but knowing that that's not necessarily quite enough. You have to have a mentality to go with it. You have to have, you have to be prepared for the first time you go out.
So you actually nurture a set of young people.
Yes, yeah, it's one of the businesses that I sort of formed towards the end of my career. So that is really fulfilling for me to see young players, coming through and playing, because it's a very difficult thing to do, is to break through into the first team. So I like to do that. I like to, turn my hand at coaching youngsters. I think giving back to grassroots is very important, because all footballers came through in the initial stages through that grassroots program. So, so helping young players and trying to give them a little bit of a... How
is that nurturing process of the grassroots working out in England right now? Because, now football is all about money. It's big money. It's an industry. And even what you do in nurturing young people is a business. So, how much of it is business and how much of that is youth?
Well, there are certain parts that are business. I think not just me, but I think the authorities are very, very keen on investing back into grassroots, and it doesn't have to be at the sharp end of the game. Just creating an environment for people to enjoy football. It all helps at the end of the day. Yes, there will be professional players that come through these programs, these investments, but we want our football to be enjoyable for everybody to be able to take part, no matter what religion or colour or sex or whatever it might be. I think it's really important for the authorities that is the case, and it's all encompassing and all inclusive. And I take great pride. I work with the Premier League on a lot of different campaigns. And as I said, I also have a business that, one, is a business. I want it to be successful in every way, shape or form. But success for me is not the financial gain. It's, the pleasure I get from seeing a lad that I talked to, worked with for many years, then breaking into the first team is a great thrill for me, because I know exactly how it feels.
You probably get invited by a number of governments around the world trying to, ace up their football status, and get up the rankings and stuff like that. And at the same time, there are conflicting priorities. Governments also want to make football a grassroots, activity that's enjoyed by society. It holds society together. At the same time, it generates wealth that picks up, individuals who then, go up the wealth ladder in a sense. Just give us a sense of some of the initiatives that you might be working on around the world, or governments will call you up to help them and so on.
Well, I think there's so many positives that football obviously brings, as you say. The hope for so many people. It's everybody's equal in football. If you've got a special talent, you will get the opportunity. People will see you. It's no stone is left unturned nowadays in the world of football. If you've got an ability, then you will eventually make it. You've got all the right assets to go with it. But as you say, there's lots of opportunities in the world, whether it be coaching, whether it be advice, whether it be promoting certain aspects of the game. There's so many different opportunities. Here in China, for example, Chinese people, right from the top as well, President Xi wants, football to be a much more part of the Chinese culture, but it never has been really. And over the last few years, the Chinese Super League has taken off. Now, the one-child policy is not anymore. There's a lot more hope. There's a lot more scope for people to actually become football players now. So, this is a really interesting project over here, and I expect Chinese football to improve so much over the years as well. And hopefully one day in 20, 30 years, be competing right at the sharp end in World Cups and things like that. But it's going to start from the youth, and it has to start from there, because you can't just turn a player that's 15 or 20 now into a great player, having missed such a chunk of.
So what do governments do that are right and wrong? You can handpick governments in different parts of the world that actually hires, brand name footballers like you, and the coaches who have made it, with other teams. They import them, and they try to to jumpstart the whole process. And yet there has to be this grassroots thing, which is you start people young. You started when you were 2 years old. Today, a 2-year-old starting football probably pays a club an obscene amount of money and with parents who are dreaming out that they're going to be millionaires, football stars when they grow up and stuff like that. The motivation is different. It's changed, and money is changing a lot of that. So what do you think that countries or societies need to do to keep to the original intent of something like football?
Well, it's interesting, because I think a lot of people assume that money is something that's driving football at the moment. I mentor about 25 players, and at no stage have I ever heard any of them say money is the motivation why they want to get into Manchester United's first team, Liverpool's first team, why they want to be a footballer. I never, ever, ever even thought about money until I was about 19, 20, and I was getting it. Then I realised, I can buy a house or a car. I never even thought of it. I always wanted to be a footballer because I wanted to be a footballer. I wanted to be the best footballer in the world. That was my dream. And I think that young children, that's their dream. Now, if their parents have got different ideas, if they're motivated by, that they see a golden ticket at the end of it, then that's obviously their prerogative, and they've got to parent their child accordingly. But I think we turn to money. The older we get, the more money becomes more of an issue or more of a driver. The innocence of being a child and wanting to be a footballer for all the right reasons, I think that remains. And as I say, I think it only changes the older you get.
As football becomes more democratic, meaning more countries participate, more countries build infrastructure, the ranking order up to a World Cup starts to change. And something I notice is that the reasons why one team wins the World Cup this year changes very quickly with the reasons why the next team wins the following World Cup. And it appears as if the mechanics of the industry just keeps changing. In a way, it's becoming more technical, and at the same time, the old skills of teamwork and individual skills and all that is there somewhere, but the industry is becoming highly structured in a way. Do you get a sense that you're dealing with a very technical industry now? And is there something that you end up doing where you build structure in terms of how players are trained, what skills you're looking out for and stuff like that?
Well, there's no question. When I started out in football, it was purely
just go out there and play.
Yeah, on the eye. A manager would pick a team, would buy a player, would do training, would do all these things purely on their eye and their instinct. Nowadays, everything is measured. And whether that's physical output, whether that's, we're wanting to buy a centre forward to improve our team, go into the computer and see, what their output is, how many shots they have, how many goals they score, how many high speed runs they are, how fast they are. You can measure absolutely anything now. And then it goes on to scouting the opponents. When we're looking at the opponents we're playing, where their strengths, where their weaknesses, where do teams score most goals against them? Where can we exploit? It's all gone very technical nowadays.
In that technical universe, do you see your own limitations? I was watching some of your past games, and I saw that you were the fastest man on that field, right? And then you described to me that it was not just being fast, but it's also about being tactical, right? Right up to getting to scoring the goal. Did you see limitations in yourself in that? If you watch those same playbacks?
I think so. I think if I look back on my career, I can see things that I think, I could have been better at that. But I'm a huge believer in, if you're coaching a player and you're looking at a player as a whole, there's too many people that think, right, he's 9 out of 10 at that and that and that, but he's only 4 out of 10 at that. And people are really interested in trying to improve the 4s to get them up to 5s and 6s. Whereas I think, get even better at the things you're good at. Because being a footballer or being anything in life, if you're just the status quo, if you're just, average at everything or good at everything, then you will never get to the top. And being outstanding, having 2 or 3 outstanding attributes will take you to the top. So in my case, as you mentioned, speed was one of them. I think my mental strength and a finishing ability, so being calm under pressure. But speed is not enough, as we spoke about earlier. If speed was everything, then all Olympic 100-meter runners would all be footballers. But being able to control and manipulate a ball at top speed, that is the key. So being very, very good at a couple of things is far better than being just good at.
So football is an individual sport in that you need to get the ball across the field to the other side. It's a team sport because you need to work with the rest of your team. It's also a leadership sport in a sense that you need to have a big picture of what you're dealing with every game almost. Are you a leader in that sense, or are you a team player?
That's a good question. I think that's the beauty of football, that it really is everything rolled into one. You can have the best players in the world, and there's been plenty of teams that have just bought the best players in the world over the years. But did they win the title? Not necessarily, because teamwork is key. Leadership is very important. You need a certain amount of leaders within your team. I would say that I was a leader in terms of taking responsibility. I would like to think people looked at me in the dressing room and thought, we've got a chance today because we've got Michael Owen in our team. or I did think every time I crossed that white line, I believed that I was the best player on the pitch and that I could influence the game. I wasn't a leader in terms of being vocal. I didn't feel as if I was as capable of performing myself and being so comfortable with myself that I could then help others as well. Some people, it doesn't detract from their performance. They can help others as well as playing the game. But I really felt as if I need to focus on my game. And I felt if I'm doing my job and you're doing your job and you're doing your job, we'll all be all right. But some people could help others as well. I didn't feel as if I was like that.
Do you find yourself being forgiving towards the 25 young people that you're mentoring right now, or do you push them, like, on the areas that they're good at, or push them to strengthen the areas that they're weak at?
I would say my character is quite pushy, quite hard. There's no getting away with it. Being at the top of anything is difficult. Being a professional footballer, going the ups and downs, getting there in the first place, staying there once you get there, having the mental capability to do all of that, you can't be soft and be a footballer. So I find myself being quite tough on the players that I advise. Different characters require different ways that you're tough on them, but I would say overall that I don't paint a false picture. This is a hard game. There's going to be ups and downs. You mentioned mental strength, and there's the mental strength that took you up to the World Cup with Argentina, and then there's the mental strength that kept you on the course. And then when you retired, what are you using your mental strength now for? I think every day of my life, I use it. Everybody's got and you don't have to tell anybody. Everybody's got a way of looking at themselves, looking at other people, knowing what you're very good at. I have 3 or 4 different businesses now. I know in 1 or 2 of them, I'm not really needed. To be honest, I'm not really interested. But there's 2 or 3 two businesses that I need to be there. I need to have my say within the business. It's you. I think it is me. I think if I left, then the business would no longer exist. I think I'm not going to possibly leave a legacy for my children with 2 of the businesses because they solely depend on me. But on 2 of the other 2 businesses, they probably will because they don't. I know where my strengths lie and I know where my weaknesses are as well. And I think as long as you can see both sides of the coin, I think then you'll be all right. Right. So now soccer or football is being expanded across borders. New countries like the US and so on, even China, are being incorporated to the whole community, as it were. And then you have football being introduced to women, and the women's league is up there somewhere. How much of this do you think will influence World Cup or that one pivotal moment in football? Well, football is growing. It's hard to believe, but it is still growing. The women's game is probably the one area that's got rapid growth at the moment. But I'd say in all other, whether it's disability sports and, that's all grown as well. There's opportunity everywhere. So it is hard to believe, but football is growing in all 4 corners of the world. The world is becoming a better place. It's not perfect, no question about that, but football certainly goes a long way to helping in so many different ways. It gives people hope. It gives people something to aspire to. The people involved can be role models for so many children all around the world. So I think football's got a lot to be proud of. Money and football, the corruption of money in football. Do you find yourself having to deal with it at certain points? Do you find yourself coming across, bookies and stuff like that? And how do you deal with that? No, I mean, I've never, ever come across any corruption in my career, never been approached by anything like that. I guess wherever there's lots of money, there is corruption in any walk of life. But I've certainly never come across it. Never come across it because you were not approached, or never come across it because even if you were approached, you
or that you would actually walk away from it?
Never, because I was never approached, for starters. And of course you would walk away from it if that was to be the case, but I've never been approached. And I've been in the game for obviously a long time, played with a lot of different footballers. I've not known anybody that's been approached. Now you hear of rumours in certain countries, but where I've played in the English Premier League, I think it's a very, very clean sport. I'm convinced that there's no drugs involved, no performance enhancing. There's certainly no corruption. I've never been approached. I've never heard anything about it. And I think that's one of the reasons that people love football so much, is because they've got trust in the sport and they believe it to be clean, which I think it very much is.
Now that football is becoming more democratic and expanding across borders and across different interest groups and so on, who makes a good ambassador of football? And we've had several very good ambassadors, yourself, everyone from Pele down to this generation. Do you see yourself as an ambassador to football? And what do you think makes you specifically a good ambassador for the game?
Well, it's quite hard to talk about yourself in that way, but I think if you've reached the heights of the game that I have, then of course, you've seen a lot, you've heard a lot, you've done a lot. And I think throughout my career, I always played the game in a fair way, in an honest way. I think I only ever had one red card in my career. So I think I've never brought the game into disrepute. For that matter, I've always been a positive influence, I would have thought, and endorsed the game in the right way, played the game in the right way. So I think that's probably what constitutes a good football ambassador.
You've lent your name to brands and as a brand ambassador to other commercial ventures and partially out of a commercial consideration. But what do you think about before you lend your name to a brand?
Well, I think the first thing that I think would be, is this in keeping with my image, which is, I would say, respectable, pretty clean living. You do your due diligence on the company and think, is it the right fit? Is it the right, balance? Is it a healthy, food, or is it, or things like that? They all come into consideration. And I think you've got to have responsibilities. I think people look at you, and some people look up at you, and you can have an influence. So I think it's always important that if you're going to align yourself with another brand, then it's got to be a reputable one that is going to fit your image.
Do you see your children, carrying on the tradition? I mean, that gene that passed from your father to you, do you see that going to the next generation?
I think so, yeah. I've got 4 children, 3 girls, 1 boy. My boy doesn't really, if one week he likes football, the next week he doesn't. So with an attitude like that, I can't imagine he's going to be a footballer. But he's very good in school, academically. But my girls are very sporty. I've got my eldest, she rides for Great Britain at dressage. And then my 3rd child, she's an exceptional runner. She's very, very fast. She's a very good swimmer as well. But she's got a great mentality. She wants to be an Olympian, and I don't know what it's going to be, but I wouldn't put it past her, because she's very, very strong-willed and strong-minded and exceptionally quick. So hopefully it will be in that.
It's interesting that you've allowed them all to be their own persons, but at the same time, each of them carrying their own tenacity, which you had, that built your own career.
Yeah, that's right. And I try to, it's frustrating for my wife, because she hears what I sometimes say to my kids who can't really understand why I say it and how I say it. I find it very difficult to give lots and lots of praise. I like being very subtle, and I like my kids to yearn to be, to want to impress, because that's what I was like with my dad. I had to impress him. He used to watch every game, and even until I was 33 and retiring, if I could impress one person in the world, even though he watched every game, I didn't need to show him how good I was. He still had this spell over me that I just, no matter what, just a little nod of approval, as if to say, well played, son. Things like that was just, my heart would die if he just gave me a little nod. And I try to have that sort of attitude with my kids. I mean, the results came through. My third child is a runner, as I said, and the results came through. And officially, she was the 4th fastest in her age group in England last year. My wife is, oh, that's fantastic, to my daughter and whatever. I said, well, yeah, but
okay, right. You know where you came from.
4th, not first.
Oh.
Let's just, that type of attitude and keep her wanting to be the best. So it's.
So, what keeps you mentored? Who are the signposts that you have for yourself? So, for yourself at this point in your career.
Well, I think it's important always to want to impress somebody, and I don't care who that is. I mean, growing up, I had my dad and I had Steve Highway. Now, Steve Highway was an old Liverpool player in the great teams of the past, and he was the academy manager at Liverpool. And no matter what he said or did, I just couldn't stop being, trying to impress him. And I think it's really important because it gives you a focus all the time. There's never, ever a training session that I took part in that I didn't have anyone to impress. So I think even to this day, my parents, I love the thought of them being proud of what I'm doing, not just in my first career, but now in all the other things I do. It's great to feel that they're proud of me. And then I think on the flip side, I want my children to grow up thinking, fair play, my dad works hard, is very honest, does his best. And so I think, roles reverse now. I'm trying to be a good role model for them.
Michael Owen, I started this conversation wanting to map what you've achieved in your career to what large countries are doing in order to create that grassroots effect and then build up individual stars that create wealth and good for society. But I think what we've ended up building in this conversation is that at the end of the day, it starts with what's inside here and being true to yourself. I guess that's the message you seem to be passing on to me.
Definitely. I don't think you can go through life, it's a long time that you're on this planet, and I don't think you can go through life not being true to yourself. Everything I do is, or every business that I go into is what I want, it's what I see myself doing because I enjoy it. I've got a passion for it. There's a purpose to everything I do. And I think you've got to be like that. I'm very fortunate, though. I got to do exactly what I wanted to do in life. And then I got choices because of that. So I was very fortunate that then I could choose to do what I want to do. And I realised that not everybody can do that. So I am one of the lucky ones. But it's being true to yourself is certainly one of my mottos.
Thank you, Michael Owen.
Thank you.